Hello, everyone. Welcome to the uh, the early stages before anyone gets here of the next Out of the Archives episode, episode 3. So we're just going to be hanging out in Logan Square in my apartment for a little bit while we wait for folks to pop on. So hope everyone's been having a good last month since we saw you last. Today it's just going to be me here. It looks like we have some people who are popping in. We have no audio. Let's see what the problem is. Oh, there we go. Because if can people give me a thumbs up in the room if they can hear me? Make sure that your audio is on. Give me some comments to make sure that you can hear me, so you can hear the audio in just a little bit. Looking to see some positive feedback for audio in the comments. Like I said, I hope everyone is doing well. It's been a wild 2 months, and it looks like thank you, Emily, and thank you, Mom. We've had a wild 2 months, and it looks like um, well, tomorrow the state is going to be reopening to stage 3, which is exciting, and Chicago will be following suit on Wednesday, June 3rd. So a lot of things going on right now, but yeah, we're gonna continue doing what we're doing at the museum, and I hope that everyone's able to continue what they're doing to the best of their ability back at home. Um, Thank you, everyone, for letting me know if the audio is working. Hi, Scott. We're going to be starting this episode in just a minute or two. I'm gonna, wait a little bit longer for people to kind of siphon in. Um, and yeah, anyone want to talk about anything? Um, Feel free to throw some comments in the chat. As I mentioned earlier, um, today it's just going to be me, but I'm going to try to have some sort of back and forth discussion with audience members um, to the best of my ability. As as anyone who's working in the social justice field or really any field, we're always learning, and I might not have the answer to some of the quandaries and questions that you may have, but I'll do my best to dialogue with you all in the little chat room that we have going on. I'm gonna wait like another 2 minutes before we get rolling with the official program for today. You always gotta have some water. You gotta hydrate to be great, as I always say. All right, we're slowly ramping up the folks who are watching that, which is wonderful. Hello, new people. If you're just tuning in, you're at the right place. You're at the National Public Housing Museum's next installment of the Out of the Archives listening series, where we're going to be sharing different audio clips from the museum's oral history archive. And really, the stories, especially in this month's episode, really run the gamut of different topics that we're kind of touching on. But um, I think there's a lot of very timely and important things that are discussed in today's episode. There's a lot of conversation about Black Pride. I think right now, especially with what's going on in Minneapolis, I think it's really an important time to um, you know continue to restate that Black Lives Matter, and we want justice for George Floyd. I think that's a um, really important place to be right now. Um, and yeah, so we will be starting this episode in just about a minute or so. And like I said, feel free to throw down some of your thoughts, chime in the chat room, and I'll do my best to respond. All right, so it's officially 5:05, so I'm gonna kick it off. For anyone who comes in late, I'm sure you're going to be able to assimilate yourself to what's going on. But hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mark Jeschke, and I am the Oral History Coordinator at the National Public Housing Museum. And tonight, my second duty at the museum is being your favorite MC for the online debut of episode 3 of Out of the Archives. And this is a program that I'm kind of spearheading with the help of some folks on staff, as well as the museum's Oral History Corps, who've been, throughout the last couple of years, been assembling stories, collecting them from all across the country. Right now, a lot of those stories are focused in Chicago, as we are Chicago-centric and located. But we are working to really be able to present these stories. Right now, the museum's archive is not available to the public. We're working on getting it to a place where it is. But for right now, this is sort of an introduction for all of you to the work that we're doing in terms of the museum's archive. And that archive is designed not only as a space to learn about the long and varied history of public housing, not just in Chicago, but really across the country. But we think of it as a direct source of knowledge to inform public housing policies and inspire future generations of public housing residents and allies from the stories that are in the archive that really look at a history of resilience, a history of community. And yeah, we're really excited to be able to share these little snippets of what's to come in the coming months and years ahead for the museum. And if you tuned in to last month's Out of the Archives, which, by the way, is still very much available on our Facebook. You can still watch the live stream. It has myself, the museum's executive director, Dr. Lisa Yun Lee, and one of our oral historians, Shakira Johnson. You can still go back and watch that episode. Or if you're more into the podcasting audio sort of format, you can go to our website and find the audio in our Oral History Corps and Archive section, or you can go to our SoundCloud page, and I'll be able to link both of those for easy accessibility at the end of my conversation, so that we can. If you're interested in listening, you can do that. And one of the important pillars of this project I'd like to share with everyone is to really radically expand the base of American history. During these last few months, on a very personal level, I've spent a lot of time trying to reassess and re-examine my own story, rethinking and relooking at what makes me me. And it's been quite a journey for me, and it's one that is not finished and never will be finished as life works. But I've been appreciating more and more about how some of the nuances of my life I kind of find to be really important cornerstones of my own identity. And the same goes with you, and the same goes with the people that you're going to hear tonight in this episode. As I mentioned earlier, part of the work of this archive is to reassess what our notions of American history are. And an important step in doing that is to actually step back and to acknowledge and appreciate the value of marginalized communities, whether that is the economically disadvantaged, our LGBT community, racial and ethnic and religious minorities. Because one thing that I feel like I've learned a lot while listening to these stories is, more often than not, those are the folks who have a lot of answers to the systemic issues that have harmed those communities. And as I mentioned earlier, especially in today's climate, it is absolutely imperative that we listen to those voices. So in tonight's episode, you're going to be hearing from some storytellers from across time and location, from Chicago's public housing. And those folks include H. Demetrius Bonner of Stateway Gardens, Raymond Shaq McDonald, who is both, and a little fun side note, he is not only a storyteller in this episode, but he's also one of the oral historians, who lives in Cabrini Green. Crystal Palmer of the Henry Horner Homes, Alan Schwartz of the Jane Addams Homes, Juanita Stevenson, hi Juanita, I know you're listening, of the Lathrop Homes, and Claudice Ware of the Ida B. Wells Homes. I'd like to also mention that in future episodes, we're going to continue to discuss and share a range of topics, some of which include mental health, arts and culture, athletics, and more. And I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be looking a little bit harder this week at the chat section. So if you have any topics that you would want us to address and look at for future episodes, feel free to throw those at us. I'd love to be able to spend some time to, really dig into the archive even more and find stories that that you folks are also interested in listening to. So as I mentioned, aside from being, your favorite MC for the night, I'm the coordinator, the oral history coordinator at the museum. And right now we are working to create an outward-facing version of the archive that is not just these little snippets of audio that you're hearing in tonight's episode and that you've heard in past episodes. And we're working to create this database that's going to both be radically accessible and social justice centered to host all of these stories. And it becomes more and more important. I keep like getting back to this point that especially now it's so important to be able to listen to marginalized communities, because so often we have misconceptions and we have prejudices, and I think it's really important to as a nation and as just a human race to work against some of the parts of our lives that are difficult for us, and addressing and talking about anti-Black racism right now, I think is of utmost importance. So I'd like to sort of dovetail off of that important note to give a special thanks once again to one of the museum's key collaborators, Skyla Hearn, who's one of Chicago's most progressively minded archivists, who's helping me build out that archive, and is just one of the most thoughtful and caring people that I've had the opportunity to work with on a professional level. And she was also one of my professors at the UIC's Museum and Exhibition Studies program. So it's been quite the journey with Skyla, and I want to give her a special hello and shout out tonight. In addition to Skyla, a special thanks to the museum's oral history corps that includes Hannah Barg, Ashley Jefferson, Shakira Johnson, Raymond McDonald, Maria Moon, Colette Payne, and without those folks, there is no, out of the archives, there is no archive. And like I said, I could give shout outs probably all night and they would all be very warranted. But if I do that, many of you will probably leave. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off this next episode. I'm going to be trying to do the screen share again. Last month, excuse me, we did have some audio issues when I was doing the screen share. So please, again, let me know in the comments if there are any issues with audio when the screen share is going. But without further ado, this is episode 3 of Out of the Archives. Let's see, in classic Zoom format, or I guess this is Be Live on Facebook. Things are going a little bit slow. Let's see, which episode is this? Sorry, everyone. The SoundCloud pulled up the wrong episode. Alrighty. And please let me know if there are any audio issues. Yeah, take a listen. On behalf of the National Public Housing Museum, we thank you for tuning into our listening series, Out of the Archives. In each episode, we will Extraordinary, everyday stories from Chicago Public Housing, which took cues from our 2018 exhibition history. All right, so I just heard that the audio does not go when I do the screen share with just the PowerPoint. So I'm going to reset the audio and then just close down my screen, and we'll continue that way. So thank you for bearing with me. Museum, we thank you for tuning into our listening series, Out of the Archives. In each episode, we will share a diverse range of stories told by public housing residents from our oral history archive. Each episode features a different theme that responds to our mission: to preserve, promote, and propel the thread of all people to a place where they can live and prosper, a place to call home. Stories make up the backbone of any culture. They tell us who we are and where we are from. They create empathy and understanding, and they allow us an opportunity to share our experiences and learn from the words of others. The stories in our archive lift up the voices of an oftentimes marginalized community and create a space for important conversations to happen. In this episode, Ordinary but Extraordinary, everyday stories from Chicago Public Housing, which took cues from our 2018 exhibition History Lessons, we hope to demonstrate how everyday stories are essential to expanding the scope of American history. The storytellers you will hear from today include Herman Bonner of Stateway Gardens, Raymond McDonald of Cabrini Green, Crystal Palmer of the Henry Horner Homes, Alan Schwartz of the Jane Addams Homes, Juanita Stevenson of the Lathrop Homes, and Claudius Ware of the Ida B. Well Homes. The stories span from 1943 to the present day.
Mr. Herman Bonner. Okay, originally I was born in Stateway Gardens. What you have to understand is that growing up in that era, the thing was to be proud of blackness, proud of who you are. We didn't know what poor was. I didn't anyway. Because if you need it, you got it. Some people were less fortunate. But the public housing I grew up in, see, my grandmother was the candy lady. And if you had an issue, your mother would come talk to the candy lady. And my grandmother would try to help them work it out. She wasn't the only one. There was Miss Lee who lived downstairs. And we knew their people. And so it was a lot of candy ladies around. But if you didn't have oatmeal cookies and banana splits and mint juleps, then you wasn't, you had to deal with the people who just did. My grandmother lived on the 15th floor. So you must have really liked coming to Miss Rose's house. And besides, she made hoe cake. And most kids didn't have. Their parents didn't know how to make biscuit bread and hoe cake and stuff like that. So we'll go back to that hoe cake stuff later. And yeah, I might need a recipe. The thing is, the story of the hoe cake that she told me, I asked her, why do you call it a hoe cake? And I have fun with that term today. I have fun with this today because I can ask some ladies, have you ever heard of a hoe cake? And they'll come up with, yeah, I heard of it. What is it? It's a whole cooking of cake. No. So, for your clarity's sake, I'll say that a hoe cake was invented by the slaves. The field workers, they didn't have a stove. So in order to make their bread, they needed flour and water, which they had. They would put the holes together. You ever seen a tool hole? Yeah. Which has a sharp base, but it's iron, right? They start the fire and make them a griddle with the hole. Put the hole together. So you have big holes, little holes, and you just make it into a griddle. And mix your bread up and fry it on top of the hole. Hence, hoe cake.
My name is Claudice Ware. I'm a former resident of Atterby Wells. I lived there for 28 years. Being brought up in Atterby Wells, you know, your parents get involved in the community. I want to say around 85 in that area of 90. My mother also was a building president for 3833, as she said, on the local advisory council board. I used to be so furious with them. I don't want to be bothered with these people. And my mother just kept on trying to pull us in to be involved in a lot of the community stuff. And never thought I'd be where I am now, advocating for residents, because I hated it at a young age. I felt my parents should have been spending more time with me instead of other youth, or the community, and advocating for them. But it grew on me over the years. So when I had to go between the two rivalry communities, I'm like, Lord, only if you could just help me out, because I don't see where I'm fixing to be sweeping and mopping or anything. But I did what I needed to do. And as time went on and things, kind of died down just a little bit, both sides of the community began to respect me. So that's what I was doing.
Alan Schwartz. So I was born in Chicago, and my family, parents, were already living at the Jane Addams Projects. We were in the courtyard over there, and on the first floor. So, it seemed okay. It seemed okay. Right around the corner was the Garden Theater. I don't know if anybody else has talked about the Garden, but the Garden was a little local neighborhood theater, and that was on Taylor and Racine, right on the corner of Taylor and Racine. We were just on Lytle and Racine. So, my sister and I, or myself, or sometimes maybe the whole family would go to the Lytle at least once a week. People did in those days, went to the theater. The neighborhood was, so the projects was there, and then it was surrounded by this Italian neighborhood.
It's Kristen Palmer.
I ran for LAC. They wanted me to run for president. I was like, no, we're not going to do that. I said, let me get in and see what it's like first. So the first term I ran for treasurer. Second term I ran for LAC president. I won the election by 2 points. I beat someone that had been in office for 32 years. It was a battle because they did a lot of stuff, but it was a battle. And if something is ordained by God, it doesn't matter who try to attack it, it won't prosper. But I knew that I had to get in and do some work and convince people that I didn't just come there for nothing. I didn't come there to stir up anything. I came there to stir up stuff, but I didn't come to stir up in a negative way. I came to stir it up in a positive way and to build people's relationships and to build people's quality of life and instill in them that they can do better, that they should do better, and that we can help you get to that point. So God opened those doors for me. And I just started teaching what he gave me to people. And then from that, kind of travel all around the place telling a story about public housing, telling my story. about, you can, just because you're from public housing does not mean that you at the bottom of the barrel, even though society may think that because it's just a biased perception. When people sit down and talk to you and me, they don't see a project once they get to know us and talk to us. They don't see that. It's a perception.
Hi, I'm Raymond McDonough. Shaq.
Shaq.
Yeah, that's what most people where I'm from call me. It's a lie that I didn't know growing up about my neighborhood that I was living in. But what I did know, it was resilient. We marched. We fought. The mayors, as far as going to his offices and marching on his property, telling him our demands as a community, having a voice. And I'm seeing this in my young years. It was really, really cool to me, just to see the Black power. Just to see how people have a voice, have something to hold on to. It made a difference to me growing up. It gave me a sense of self, to see others having a sense of self and knowing what they wanted. Home stability in itself with life, a community. And when you see a person fighting for their community, you have to involve yourself, whether you're in that community or not, because you're seeing a multitude of people fighting for a purpose. And that's what the bigger thing for me was, coming from Cabrini, being from Cabrini, was my bigger purpose in life, being from here, from a place with this much history.
Hi, I'm Juanita Stevenson. I'm president of the Lathrop Local Advisory Council. And so I talked to my son's doctors, and I told them what was happening with him, with his sickle cell and with all the challenges he was facing. He was out of breath, and the pain was so bad coming up and down the stairs. And so the doctors wrote a letter to CHA. And when the doctors wrote a letter from Children's Memorial Hospital, because that was the hospital that I always took my children to, and they wrote a letter to CHA, and CHA called me into the office one day and asked me did I still want to live in Lathrop Homes. And I told them, yes, of course, I really want to move into Lathrop Homes. And this was 1983. And so they got the paperwork fixed up, sent my files over there because I had been on the wait list for 10 years. And I came over to Lathrop Homes. I met with the property manager, and she took me to one of the units here in Lathrop Homes. It was right here on the corner, 27, I think, 60-something here on the corner. And so as she was showing me my unit, I was just so happy because here I am, I'm getting ready to go into a low rise. I don't have to live in a high rise, and then the community with so many different, challenges. So we go and we see the unit, and she was showing me my unit, and she showed me my son's, my bedroom, and she showed me my son's bedroom. And I was like, okay, this is my bedroom. This is the boys' bedroom, but where's the girls' bedroom? And she turned around and she looked at me, the property man, her name was Miss Brack at that time. And she looked at me, she said, what you mean in the girls' bedroom? I said, I have 5 kids. She said, you got what? I said, I have 5 children. She said, I only thought you had 1 child, so that's why she had just showed me a 2-bedroom unit. So I said, no, I got, at that time I had 2 girls and I had 3 boys. And I told her, I said, I have 3 boys and 2 girls. So she thought for a minute. She said, wait a minute, I might have something for you. So we left out that building. We walked down the street here to 2625 North Hoyne. And she showed me this row house. And wow, it was like my whole life had begun to change, because here I was getting ready to get an apartment with an upstairs and a downstairs. What better opportunity you can't get in housing, And so she told me, she said, you can have this right here. And that was one of the happiest days of my life, because that was a housing challenge that was once again, to me, being within a community where you're free, where you feel free, you can walk out your door, you can walk right outside, you don't have to wait on elevators, you don't have to, just be with a crowd of people trying to get back and forth to your house. So that was really good for me. And I've been that was in, I want to say, January 1983, and I moved into Lathrop Homes February the 5th, 1983, and that was 34 years ago, and I've been here at that same 2625 for the last 34 years.
Once again, the NPHO thanks you for listening to this episode of Out of the Archives. This series is supported by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the Illinois Arts Council Agency, the Kresge Foundation, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. This episode was engineered by Seth Engel at Palette Sound. We'd like to give one more huge thanks to all of our storytellers today, including Herman Bonner, Raymond McDonald, Crystal Palmer, Alan Schwartz, Juanita Stevenson, and Claudius Ware, as well as the members of the museum's Oral History Corps and the other Chicago oral historians who helped to gather these stories. Those folks include Kimberly Cook, Francesco De Salvatore, Raymond McDonald, Frank McFadden, Maria Moon, Colette Payne, and Nora Waters. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you next month. The National Public Housing
Hello, everyone. We're back. I believe the audio should be up and running again. So thank you once again for tuning in to this episode of Out of the Archives. I said in the audio recording that we'd like to give one last special thanks to the narrators, but I want to do it one more time in real time. So thank you to H. Demetrius Bonner, Raymond McDonald, Crystal Palmer, Alan Schwartz, Juanita Stevenson, and Claudius Ware, and the oral historians who helped to gather these stories, including Kimberly Cook, Francesco De Salvatore, Raymond McDonald, once again, double dipping, Frank McFadden, Maria Moon, Colette Payne, and Nora Waters. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, for those of you who are interested in listening to this in more of a podcast format, you can go to our website, nphm.org, and then find the Oral History Corps and Archive tab, or visit our SoundCloud page, both of which are going to be linked in the comment section, to listen to these episodes, as well as the first two episodes of the series. And in both places, you're also going to be able to find a transcript of the entire program. So once again, as we wrap up for the evening, thank you again so much for those who tuned in. It's been a very difficult past 2.5 months. I think it's been 2.5 months. I don't know what time is anymore. But if there are any essential workers who are listening, special thanks to you. We appreciate everything that you are doing for our community during these difficult times. I'd also like to wrap this up in solidarity with the struggle that's going on in Minneapolis. And I would like all of us to take some time to advocate for justice for George Floyd and remember that Black Lives Matter. Thank you once again for spending some time with us. I hope that this audio piece really kind of does hammer home for you the importance of listening to everyone's story and how those can really not just impact your perspective on history, but can also really make a big impact and change on how we view American history and as we move forward as a country, post-COVID, and beyond. That a lot of the time, the folks that we oftentimes write off, who are marginalized and the like, are some of the people that have the answers. And I just want to once again thank you for listening to this piece. We look forward to sharing more audio with you next month. And be well, take care of one another, and we will see you soon. Have a great night.